Welcome to Jovan and Leila show. Tune in to listen about self-love, relationship for kidney fighters.
Aloha, welcome everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us today on Jovan and Leila's podcast. My name is Leila. I'm here joined by the wonderful Jovan. Today we're going to be talking about how to start looking for a kidney and really kind of stepping out of our cocoon of dialysis in a way and looking and reaching out and ways on how to speak about it, how to look, outlets, and support, and just being creative. And I think just kind of going through our story, both Jovan and I, of how we both found our kidneys and the continued search, if you will. So thank you so much for being here. Jovan, I'll give you some space to introduce yourself and say hello.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Jovan, and I'm pretty excited for this topic for sure.
So Jovan, given your beautiful story, I hope that many of you have listened to our previous podcast where Jovan and I kind of speak about our kidney stories. Jovan is just so special to have received 2 kidneys, is now on the search for third, pardon me.
The third.
But the third, I think it's going to be lucky number 3 is going to be it,
I hope so.
But growing up, you received your first kidney at the age of 8. And like growing up, do you remember ever like looking for a living donor or, being on the list? Like, do you have memories about that?
Yeah. So the only thing I remember was that I knew I was on the list at a young age. I wasn't too sure how the lists worked or anything like that. The only thing I remember is like once I found out I was on the list, it took about a year. And then I was in my third grade class. My mom takes me out of class. We head to San Francisco, which is like a 2.5 hour road trip. And time for a transplant. I had no idea what that was. I had no idea how major it was. And I mean, you're 8 years old in third grade. You're playing in the playground with your friends in one moment, and then you're in a hospital room all of a sudden the next. So I wasn't too sure how the list was working, but I do know that it was from a baby that fell off a crib. It was a cadaver. And yeah.
Did they ever like speak to you about it as if like, mentioning, oh, we're looking for a kidney for you? Like, did you have those thoughts in your head thinking that, I get a kidney? Because you weren't on dialysis just yet too.
I wasn't on dialysis. And to be honest, to that point, I still felt normal. I felt like everything was normal still. I think that is when it really hit me, what like something's different about my life, like everything was normal to that point. At least the feeling. I still had my surgery from when I was a month old. Like things had happened that I don't remember. When I was 8 years old, till 8 years old, I still felt what you would call normal, a normal childhood. And then when I went to surgery, that's when everything just hit real quick. Like, oh, something's different. I do remember that my mom was talking and really close with the other child's parents that got the kidney. You know how the one kidney goes to one kid and another kidney goes to the other. And the other kidney, he was like around my age as well. So my mom was close to the family. I'm not too sure what happened with that, but so I briefly remember that part. I just remember more about what was going on in those 3 months that I was in the hospital, but leading up to it, not too much.
Wow, you stayed in the hospital for 3 months?
Yeah, I remember I was staying there like for 2.5 months. I came back for like a week, went back because my body was rejecting it. And it was a long time. I was in there for a minute.
How long did you have your first kidney before it sadly rejected?
I think it was like 3 months, like
Wow.
2.5, 3 months. And then they took it out very quickly. It didn't last that long. It didn't grapple.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's so hard. So yeah, almost the entire time you were there in the hospital,
Yeah,
just kind of just
for
trying
sure.
to see if you could get it to catch.
Right. So the whole time was just fighting it to make sure my body wasn't going to reject the kidney. And usually when you go through a transplant and your body rejects, you go straight to dialysis. I didn't go straight to dialysis. It just went back to normal.
Wow. And then your second kidney that your mom so generously gifted, you were 19.
19.
Mm.
19. So that one I do remember. It was, I was on the list since 1997, since I got dialysis. Leading up to it, had multiple surgeries in high school, different things, taking out the parathyroid hormone out of my neck, just different little things were going on. But it wasn't until 2004. I graduated in 2003. 2004 was when January 2004 was when we started the IVIG from January to, I believe it was June or July. I always remember my transplants were in the summer. June and July, I believe, was when we did the transplant. And yeah, so every day did IVIG. Every Wednesday did IVIG for 6 hours in San Francisco to lower my immune system. I wasn't able to get a kidney. It was so hard just because the first transplant had high antibodies. So my mom ended up donating her kidney.
Do you remember her going through the process of being tested, and like what kind of feelings you may have had like as she was getting tested? Those
Not
feelings
really.
of like hope, excitement.
It was actually, from what I remember, I didn't want to do it. Like, I was like, it's just gonna mess up. Like, look at the first time. I was very negative about it at 19. But it ended up working.
Yeah. What, to like go a little deeper, like what were some or just it
Basically
was
that.
easy to be pessimistic. Yeah, you just didn't
Yeah, I was 19. Dialysis was kind of easy for me at that point. And I just felt like, basically, I was telling my mom I didn't want to mess up her kidney, and so leading up to it, it was very nervous. It was very nerve-wracking. I was in my first year in college, so I was thinking about that too. And but for the most part, I just remember waking up and there was doctors all around me, just very happy that it had worked. They were clapping in a way. That's how I woke up. I woke up to claps.
That's awesome. It's always a good way to wake up, I think, in any day, right?
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Who needs an alarm clock? We should start making clapping alarm clocks.
Yeah. Now thinking about it, I mean, how did they know I was like waking up at that particular time? So
Yeah,
it was
I think they're
interesting.
sneaky. They know how to wake you up.
It was definitely an interesting time, and very grateful to my mom. I can never repay her for that. She's fine though. As a donor, she's completely fine. Never had any problems. I know a lot of patients always ask that. We've talked to other parents that wanted to donate, and that's the first thing they ask. Like, is it gonna hurt? Am I gonna feel something after? And she's completely fine with one kidney.
Yes,
And also she never drank. She never did anything. So her kidney was pretty clean.
Thanks. And what are you, of course, being that she's your mother, you guys are the same blood type. What is your
Correct.
blood type?
O positive.
Yeah.
O positive.
I
Yeah.
am too. I'm O positive.
You're O positive?
I'm O positive.
Sweet. Sweet.
Yeah. I don't know if many understand. So if you're on like the list that we've kind of mentioned, it's the UNOS list. I think it's United Nations Organ Systems.
Yeah, UNOS.
Yeah. UNOS. So as being a type O blood type, you can be a universal donor, but you are not a universal recipient. So say if someone who is ill or, sadly is not going to make it and their family chooses for that person to be an organ donor,
right,
and say they're a type O blood, well, now that means that type A, type B, type AB, and type O can all receive that potential kidney. So depending on where you're at on the list, it can often mean that those who have type O blood have a longer wait time compared to someone who is a little bit more like type specific, like type A positive or A negative. Yeah, which I always thought was kind of interesting because, of course, right, you want to think of yourself as always being a donor, but in our cases, we became on the other side where we needed to be a recipient, and it can create a little bit more of a lag time, if you will.
Right. O positive is pretty special. All my dialysis techs always say, date a girl that has an O positive blood type. Which is kind of funny.
She's like banking a future kidney in there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Make sure she's O positive before you date her, which is kind of funny to think about, but I can't date you because you're
first date questions.
Yeah, no, yeah, right. That's kind of funny. But for the most part, O positive do have a longer wait time. That's why it was a lot harder for me. The ratio was if there was 100 kidneys, only 3 would work. Especially that I'm O positive and my antibodies are super high. So
makes the challenge that much harder.
Definitely.
So happy that your mom was able to be a donor and give you that gift. And so that's a big thing.
How would I ask someone now, or how would I go about it if I wanted to get a kidney?
Yeah, I think that hopefully kind of stems into or transitions into my story, because I did reach out and ask someone or just made myself available, I think. And that was something that I think both Jovan and I really want to touch on this podcast is, kind of using and finding different tools on how to come out of our shell and really step into that place of asking. And I think a lot of it comes from that moment when your self-worth kind of switches a little bit, because maybe to kind of build on what you said, like not wanting your mom to give you your kidney, or not wanting her to go through that, almost, kind of feeling like, oh, do I deserve this? Do I deserve this gift? Do I deserve to have someone else, give this to me? And I know that we kind of spoke in private saying like you would rather have a cadaver kidney than a living donor kidney, because then you're not putting like a loved one or someone that in harm's way. And it's kind of sadly like fate is kind of bringing you this kidney. And what I found so interesting when you told me that was oddly my complete opposite thought process. That I really, really wanted a living donor and not a cadaver kidney, because for my mindset, I had a feeling that I would feel more guilt knowing that someone had passed so that I could receive like a part of who they were, rather than having, a loved one, a friend, a complete stranger want to give and donate, and know that I could still see them. I can still give them a hug. I can physically show my gratitude and love towards them, and that we could both live this really fulfilling life. One being a donor and knowing hopefully what a huge gift and altruistic act that they had done. Hopefully that gives you a good feeling, I would hope, and then I get to, carry this piece of him with me, my donor, and hopefully get to live up to his legacy and his gift that he's given me. So to kind of curve back, I guess, to how you would ask someone, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of hard. It depends on kind of where you are mentally, but for me, felt like it was once again a little area of my life that I could control in what felt like such an uncontrollable circumstance. So by reaching out, by putting my story out there, whether it was connecting with fellow kidney friends, whether it was, you know, letting people know what I was going through, right? Because it's really easy to live in this like quiet bubble and no one understands, and you look healthy on the outside-ish, and, you know, we all get kind of enthralled in our own little world and don't often recognize or see what other people are going through. So for me personally, it was creating a Facebook page was how I started reaching out and asking.
Interesting. I like that you touched on the why, on your mental state going into it. Like, I think a lot of people have trouble, even for me, asking someone this huge of a sacrifice, I would say. I was never comfortable going that route for some reason. I think it was more because of personal reasons. It was nothing like negative. It was just more like, I don't think I deserve it, you know, something like that. You know, I think it was more that could be a negative, you know, but I just thought I'd rather just let fate take it away. If I deserve a kidney, it'll come, you know. And you know, my aunt has asked and I said no. You know, there's been people, but it wasn't until recently where I'm like more thinking about it. I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot, you know. And but I never felt that comfortable. That's why I really wanted to hear this. Like, how do we make people comfortable for those of us that don't feel that confidence to go that far, even asking a stranger that we don't know, because there are people out there that have great hearts that would do that would actually do that, you know. So
Yeah,
what are your suggestions, your advice?
Yeah, I think it's easy to want to overlook the world's humanity, especially right now where things are in such a kerfuffle, and that's a very nice way of saying things, as our current earth is, and just going through a lot. And yeah, knowing that there are people out there that truly, truly do want to help, and that this, not only is this, you know, hopefully receiving a kidney transplant going to be life altering and life changing for the recipient, you know, it can also give that exact type of feeling to the donor too. And I think maybe not overlooking that, to see that there are a lot of people who, you know, maybe they were drinking or smoking or whatever, and then they wanted to be a donor. It's like, oh, they stopped drinking, they stopped smoking. Oh, maybe they, you know, they start exercising and getting themselves in a little bit of a better shape, better lifestyle choices, and then they donate. They maybe would have never done that if they decided that they wanted to be a kidney donor. And you know, there's how many millions of people in the United States, and you never know who is going to be your donor. And I think that was also like the mindset that kind of helped me reach out, was thinking, who knows who is going to be out there that's going to want to help. And right, like you said, being okay with letting someone step in and be helpful. So once again, for me, it was creating a Facebook page, and I had called it Leila's Kidney Quest. And you know, it really was, right? It was going to be this quest to find a kidney. And, you know,
so what did you say? Like, I'm looking for a kidney. I'm O positive.
Yeah, I kind of put the platform out there, and just, I think my quick bio. The site is still active, and I was trying to post our podcast on, because it was pretty incredible, the following that happened at such a fast rate. I was a little surprised at how many followers I started to get. And, you know, at the time my boyfriend was in a band that was fairly popular in Seattle. And so all of them were posting, and it was just like all my friends started sharing and posting. And it was just this huge collaboration of people that I knew and loved that were ready to be advocates. And maybe they personally didn't feel like they were in a place to donate for me, but they wanted to to help me have that voice and to spread. And so I think that's also a really great idea. Like, say maybe if you aren't quite ready to like come out of your shell and to start looking, but maybe you have a few people that you love and care for that are your confidants that you trust, maybe give them that voice and allow them to have that voice for you if you're not quite ready to come out of your shell. Reach out to your social workers, because they might be an advocate for you to help spreading the word. But, you know, just as something simple as making a Facebook page and something separate was really nice. And yeah, I just had my quick bio saying, you know, I was going through dialysis, that I'm on a quest to find a donor, and, you know, posted my donor card that had my name, my information, the hospital, so that people could call, see if they wanted to get tested. You know, tried to be interactive, tried to share my story and from hooking up to dialysis and, you know, all that I was kind of going through. And I would say it took maybe about 6 months to a year. I'm trying to think of the timeline, but I feel as though it's lost upon me. But I'd say at about 6 months-ish, that's when my cousin had come forward. I think I made a post about putting my dialysis bags on my machine, and some clever comment of like, things are warming up in here or something. I don't even know. And he commented and was like, hey, you know, what's going on? And quickly messaged him just saying, like, I've been on dialysis for a couple of years. I'm looking for a kidney. And, you know, he instantly messaged back and said, hey, you know, I think I'm the same blood type, but he's like, let me go check. And I let him know. So if you don't know your blood type and you're curious about wanting to be a donor, you can go donate blood, and they'll tell you for free. And not only are you helping to save someone's life through donating blood, you're also able to find out, you know, what kind of blood type you are. So often those who are looking for kidneys, you can, even if you don't know anyone who is looking for a kidney, but you're feeling this call to want to donate, call your local hospital, ask them for their transplant unit, ask if you can speak to one of their social workers, and they will help guide you through. They're going to help you and say, do you know your blood type? They're going to ask you a quick, like, over the phone questionnaire, just kind of a general health questionnaire to see if there's anything that really stands out that might potentially kind of veto you for being a donor. They want to make sure, of course, not only that you're giving your kidney to the recipient, but that you, of course, are going to be very healthy post-transplant. They want to make sure that you're going to be in the best health that you can be as a donor too.
And there's also the exchange program, right?
Yes.
There's where they don't have to be the same blood type, and then another person in another state or wherever hospital is going through the same thing, and there's an exchange between 4 people, you know? So that's another way that's possible as well now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Jovan. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Like, all, you know, if you really truly want to be a donor, there are avenues and there are ways that you can find that. And I think just as being a recipient, you know, being on the dialysis side of it, it can be an emotional roller coaster. It really can. And so I forewarn you to kind of prepare for that.
It's pretty deep, actually. It's pretty almost mystical in a way. It's very spiritual, because you have someone else's organ in you that is still alive, and they're inside of you, you know, gave you new life, which is very interesting. Very, very, it could get deep real quick.
Yeah. It's a different kind of intimacy for sure.
Definitely.
You know, and vulnerability.
Definitely.
You know, yeah, I think you have another piece of someone in you. You're carrying, and then just it's just a whirlwind of emotions, right? Because you have someone come forward and you're like, oh, I really they're gung ho. I really believe that they want to do this, and throughout this whole entire process, you never know when they might get vetoed. And when they may, doctors might tell them, oh, sorry, you're not applicable, you can't unfortunately donate. Some mental, some health issue here or there. Maybe you had a kidney infection when you were a kid or something, maybe you have, you're pre-diabetic, or maybe you have like a slight blood pressure illness or something. So there are a lot of things that can send you out. But I want to say he came forward in November of 2013. And then it was like February of 2014 that I found out that we were at least a blood match. And so that's the next step. It's like, yes, you can be the similar blood type, but you need to ensure that, like, we have our antibodies, antigens, and that's kind of our immune system, right? So you want to make sure that those match so that we have the least possible likelihood of rejection by having these antibodies matched. And then from that point, it was like another 6 months of him going through tests and going into the hospital. And one thing that I know Jovan and I wanted to talk about, and if anyone is curious, if you're listening to this as a donor perspective, all of your tests, all of your medical expenses will be covered under the recipient.
That's true. That's another question that was always asked. Like, actually, someone once told me, like, I'm down, but I'm not scared of the pain. I'm not scared of giving it to you. I'm only afraid if I'm even able to afford this.
Yeah, that can be, I'm sure, a huge fear for donors, as if this is something they can afford medically. And I know in this day and age, it's been COVID and a lot of people are kind of scrambling as far as their insurance. But it would, all your tests, hospital stay, surgery, everything is covered by the recipient. And there are different ways that you can look for different, like, charities or funds to help certain donors, as far as, like, maybe having to take a few days off of work. There's ways you can create a GoFundMe to help out your donor.
That's true. There wasn't a GoFundMe back then. There's also Instagram and different social media platforms to spread the quest for a kidney as well.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
Yeah. So I wonder how many people that are listening would actually be interested in doing this, maybe we could follow their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're here to help support and advocate and give any advice, from our stories and what we've been through, to help you reach whatever goals you have, whether that's, being really healthy on dialysis and finding a balance, or looking for a kidney, or, your post-transplant life and how to find balance within that too. So it's just wherever you're at in your journey.
So if it's not through social media, and I'm just giving a scenario, if it's not through social media and you're asking a family member, how would you go about it?
So I would hope, being that they're a family member, they've kind of seen, perhaps like what you're going through, right?
Right.
And they're aware that you're on dialysis. And yeah, for personally, I think I was speaking to, like, a loved one or a cousin, or I don't know, being like, hey, I'm doing dialysis, and while yes, I'm doing okay, I'm hoping that this is a temporary thing. It's not easy. It's a really hard struggle, and I am looking for someone to be my donor, to help save my life, to give me a level of freedom that being on dialysis, can be restrictive. Is this something that you would be interested in? Do you think that you would, be fascinated by wanting to be a donor? Or would you be interested in getting tested? This, and then maybe buffering it too, letting them know that by just getting tested doesn't mean that, like, tomorrow the hospital police are going to come and swoop you up and take your kidney. Like, there's a long process, like, I think, I guess, to want to take that fear away from people, thinking that even if you're just curious, maybe you're thinking about it, and you want to step forward, but you're still, like, hesitant, or maybe you have questions, but maybe just step out and see if that's something maybe go get tested, see if you're a blood type, see how that might feel within you, see if you want to continue forward. I think it's really important to have a good open communication with the recipient and not feel like you're going to let us down if it's just not for you. And that's okay too. And I think as a recipient, at least for me, that was a reality that I always had to keep in my head. And even as like my donor was going through all of the testing process in my head, I was hopeful, but I also had to keep this like stark reality within me to keep me balanced, to keep me like a little more grounded, to not get, my head up in the clouds and being like, this is all going to work out. I had to think like at any moment, he might not be my donor and I'm going to be back at, square one, which sounds silly, but I know how to do dialysis. I found a balance there. I know what I need to do on a daily basis to keep myself healthy and okay. And if he's not my donor, that's crummy, but I've already got it handled and I can start for anew and look for a new donor, kind of thing. And that was my mentality to kind of keep myself grounded in the process.
I think you, compared to me, I think you look at it very more positive than I did, where I was more like, with 2 rejections already, like I was like, forget that. Like, I'm just going to do this dialysis. I'm going to go through it and I'm going to be the best dialysis patient as possible. Like if this is what my life is, then so be it, Now dialysis, is a temporary solution and it definitely is not a long-term solution. Even though I've been doing it for 10 years, that's 10 years too long. 2 years is too long. 6 months is too long, So I know dialysis patients that have been on it for 2 weeks and cannot stand it, so it's not easy, but when I had the transplant, it is night and day. I was like, is this what normal is? Like, I could do whatever I want now. Like, it's completely, you kind of enjoy life more. I'm sure you're in that moment right now. Luckily for me, I was able to fight that mentality. And now I'm at a state where I feel like I was like when I had my transplant. It's more of a mental thing, like we always used to talk about. But for the most part, I still know that I'm on dialysis. I still know I have to get connected to that machine 3 times a week, 3 hours and 30 minutes or else, So, and this comes back to the goals of now that I feel like I have long-term goals that I want to attain and attack. I feel like, you know what? I think now maybe I'm down to have a kidney, I know it sounds so dumb. I know it sounds very like what you never wanted a kidney before. But yeah, I didn't want to ask someone to sacrifice for me because I felt like I messed up my last one, like I felt like I was in jail. I'm in my jail cell, dialysis, and I'm living out my sentence. But now maybe I have a chance for parole with a transplant. I know I'm doing these dumb metaphors, but it's how I felt, that like I was caged up. And that's why I feel like what you're talking about is something that maybe I should do eventually. Maybe I should have a Jovan's Kidney Quest and follow that journey. It's kind of interesting. Like, I feel more comfortable now. Like, I feel in a good place where I feel like, hey, maybe I'll feel comfortable doing that now, when before I would not even second guess it, So yeah, I think your advice and knowledge is is definitely going to spark some reactions.
Thank you, John. So yeah, you feel as though now having these larger term, long-term goals, like seeing where the benefit of having a kidney can come in, where perhaps before it was harder to see.
Absolutely. Like before, it wasn't like I was like, okay, you know, especially since dialysis is actually getting a lot harder. Dialysis gets harder as at the longer period you're on it. Your veins start kind of messing up, you know, your grafts start messing up, so both arms are not available anymore for dialysis. You have a catheter in your chest, which is not even supposed to be there in months, and I have it longer than a year, so you have to get it refixed. I mean, it's just it's only going to get more difficult, you know. And so now I'm at the point where it's getting more difficult, yet I'm in a good state of mind. Let's tackle this transplant, this kidney, you know. So while my veins regenerate, and if God forbid I go back on dialysis, I'll be ready for it, you know, for another, whatever that term is. But hopefully not. Hopefully it'll last, you know, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. But for the most part, even a transplant is not the heal of all. It's not, doesn't last forever either. And that's another thing I always want to tell transplant patients, is that it's not forever.
No, I think that's a really good reality to touch
savor
on.
the moment. Savor the moment.
Yeah, because I think, like, I talk to friends and stuff, and I don't think they get that. They don't get that I have two options, and one is a transplant, the other is dialysis, and that's really, you know, those are kind of our options for patients who are in end-stage renal disease.
And maybe life is the roller coaster. It's transplant, dialysis, transplant, dialysis, transplant, dialysis. That's until someone actually finds a cure.
Yeah, a cure, or just like a way to regenerate our kidneys in a way that can help. I mean, there's I haven't checked the most recent number, but just on average, there's around 100,000 people in the U.S. that are waiting for a kidney transplant. And
I'm sure it's more.
I believe the year that I received my transplant, I think there was about 14,000 transplants that had taken place. You know, so Absolutely. To think of yourself at, and maybe last year there was like 24, 30 something. I'd have to double check those numbers, but I know pretty positive the year I received mine in 2014 was around 14,000. So yeah, you think that's what a small snippet, you know, and I think so much of it, and it's just being an advocate, getting the word out and letting more people know. I think more people would be apt to be donors if they knew more about the process, and that they can be living donors. And this is for both liver and kidney donation, not just specific to kidney donation. You know, you can donate part of your liver, you can donate your kidney and be healthy, because, you know, right, a lot of people are afraid for their own well-being, for that instinctual survival of not wanting to put their own body at harm for someone else.
Right.
But knowing that they can be healthy and happy, that, you know, transplants are done weekly at, you know, big major hospitals. They do them quite often. It's not a rarity anymore. Thank goodness. So to know that they're in really good hands.
And even these type of thoughts went through my head when this specific person asked me that she wanted to give me her kidney. And I was like, you ever thought about like your future son or daughter that might need a kidney, you know, I'm taking away that prospect, you know? So it's those type of thoughts that kind of made me reject other people's kidneys, you know, like, you know, and I know I'm thinking of it in a positive way, but it can come off like very negative too. But it might be my coping mechanism as well. But it's always been a very difficult topic for me.
It's hard to talk about, like asking for asking someone to put their body in harm's way so that they can save yours is it's powerful. It's moving.
Go through this massive surgery with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, the pain, and then like the emotional.
That's probably gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt the donor more too.
Yeah, and like my donor, he was so sweet. I think I stayed in the hospital for about a week, but they kept him for 2 days for post-op, and then let him go. You know, so it was a pretty quick. I think he had a pretty quick recovery, and
mine was the opposite. My mom was in there longer than I was.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what did they say why they kept her?
No, just that was I thought that was normal. I thought they get it worse than the donee.
Did they do the surgery laparoscopically, or did they do the open?
I want to say it was laparoscopically. Surgery. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
Right.
She only got like a small.
Yeah, just small. Yeah, and then to those who may want to be, it's a small incision. We get our good size.
Yeah,
scar, but my scar's not that bad. My plastic or the surgeons that sewed me up did a really, really good job, and I let them know that I keloid scar anyway, so I think they were kind of mindful of that when they
got what?
So they're called keloids. They're raised. They're like keratin or raised scars. So there'll be like little bumps. Often those who might have a little bit more melanin to the color of their skin are more likely to get them. Those are a little bit lighter. So they're just like, they're darker, more prominent scars. So I let them know that I keloid, and they're like, oh, okay. And so they did. I mean, I love my scar. It's beautiful. They did a really, really good job.
Yeah, mine is like, I have a V literally on my abs.
Because from one side and then the other.
Exactly. Literally a V. And it's, it looks like I got abs, but no, not yet.
One thing that we were talking with Natalia was she was saying that she had one of her dear lupus friends. They were doing Zoom parties nowadays, which I thought was awesome. Like, why not take this platform and use it to the advantage, so that people can come together. Once again, it doesn't have to be people that immediately want to be their donor. Maybe they're just curious and they want to learn more about what you're going through, what your experience is. And they might be your advocate. They might be there out there spreading the word for you and saying, hey, I have a dear loved one, a friend, a sister, a cousin, that's looking for a donor. I mean, you never know what kind of conversations happen these days.
Absolutely.
And like how people discuss. I've seen people put stickers on the back of their car that, a gentleman, I think in Texas somewhere, I can't remember, but he had like a big sign on him that his wife was looking for a donor, and, walking up and down like this busy street corridor. And it's like, I think the thing is, you never know who your donor is going to be, and taking that advocate, becoming your own advocate for it and starting to look. And if maybe that's too much, maybe asking others to become your advocate for you.
Absolutely. And there's always a positive side in the end, I'm definitely an example of someone that is or was thinking negative about this approach. And, within the last few months, I was kind of switching on it, especially talking to you and that story, and especially with social media platforms as well. And now what Natalia was talking about, having Zoom meetings, I'm sure we'll have a Zoom meeting like it soon. I think that is very interesting, especially people that are even interested in donating to their own family members. That is, it definitely would help educating from a patient perspective.
Yes. Yeah. That just gave me a great idea, right? Having a Zoom call with fellow listeners. I know Jovan and I are going to be incorporating a little bit more IG lives as we continue. But to have maybe like a big Zoom meeting where people can log on and ask us questions, I think that may be kind of cool.
For sure. I'm sure a lot of people have different questions related to donation and or even if someone is going through a transplant, like receiving the transplant, how does it feel? I mean, were you able to walk right away when you got your transplant?
Yeah, they wanted me walking that same day, so I got up.
That same day.
Yeah, same
I
day,
agree.
same surgery day. Yeah, they just
agree.
want your they're just concerned for blood clots, and they want that blood circulating, and so they had me up and walking that first day. Oh, that was insane. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's painful. It's not a walk in the park, but it's so weird because the mentality, it's like the pain that I experienced from having my catheters placed was less than the pain I went through to have my kidney. But I was far willing to go to the ends of the earth and go through, blazing fire and cauldrons of, I don't even know, just to get that kidney. Like I was going to do anything and everything, and I would endure, pain 10 times as intense to receive that kidney. So I was like, meh. And then, they got you on a drip, you're fine. I was pumping my morphine like once every 8 minutes, which was needed because it was pain. It was really painful.
Be
but
pushing
it was all
that
worth
button
it.
a little more.
Yeah, they had it clocked for every 8 minutes, and it was cute. Like, that same night that I had the same day I had the transplant, they had me up and walking, and I think. Yeah, it was like they got me to sit up, and then we sat there, and the 8 minutes hit, and I hit the power, I hit the pain med, and then we got up and we walked down to the little like waiting area. We sat and then waited till the 8 minutes, and then so I was well medicated on my walk.
Morphine could definitely help. I actually walked right away to my mom's room. I was ready to go. I don't remember it hurting as much as I thought it was. I just remember that I was able to walk and everything was like good. And I was on morphine as well. And was it morphine? Yeah, I think it was morphine's what they give me, right?
Or Dilaudid, yeah, either.
No, it's definitely morphine. Yeah, it was definitely morphine. I just remember same thing, pushing that button as soon as I was able to. It was interesting time.
Life altering day. It's something I consider it as a second birthday and a second opportunity for life. And the freedom, the freedom to be disconnected from the dialysis machine is really special.
That's funny. Like you really know the date that you got. I completely forgot the date I got the transplant. Like it was like I didn't want to remember it. Like it was just like, cool, I got it. Like nowadays people on Instagram have their dates all like, I'm 236 days with the transplant, like I forgot. I was never like that. I was never, it's 7 days and 2 hours, I was just like, my birthday is March 20th. That's my only birthday.
Yeah, you got it and you're ready to go.
Yeah, it's just another day. It was almost, I understand now why it's not just another day. Talking to other transplant patients, because it's very, but since I've been doing it so long, it's like going to be my third. I have like 4 birthdays now. So
he doesn't want more birthdays.
Yeah, I know, right? So but I do, it's more like appreciated in my heart. Like I'll never forget that day. Like it's something very personal to go through. You kind of have an appreciation of life, of other people, and you kind of do see the good in humanity, I guess, like in people, and I was like, damn, like I don't know if I would have done it, for someone else, and especially when it's strangers that give to other people that have no connection, no life connection. Those are beautiful stories to me.
Truly incredible to want to give that kind of a gift to someone.
Yeah, like when parents give it to kids, I'm like, oh, okay, like you should. I hope you do,
Yeah.
But I've talked to parents that were scared to give it to their kids,
Mm-hmm.
that are just waiting for the kids to get a cadaver, which is
Mm-hmm.
like mind-blowing to me as well. I don't think I would hesitate to give it to any of my nephews. Not my kidney, because I don't know if my kidneys are that good right now. But like, I would imagine that giving anything to your child is a no-brainer.
Mm. I
But
will say, like,
I'm sure there are parents that hesitate.
mm-hmm. And like, and say in my case, both of my parents were unable to be donors,
Mm.
and that's pretty common.
Is
And
that
I
because
can
of
see
blood
how,
type?
no, but both my mom and my dad are both O positive. My dad
Mm.
has like a heart arrhythmia,
Oh,
and
health
then
issues.
yeah, so health issues, like, and then my mom, she had a really nasty, I guess, kidney infection when she was like 14, 15, and had to be hospitalized. Has never had any health issues since, nothing in and around her kidney. She's been incredibly healthy. But I think while she was doing like the opening questionnaire, they asked her if she had ever been hospitalized due to a kidney infection, and because she had said yes,
man.
even though she was 14, now, and her, now she's like 50, they said no, unfortunately, because who knows what kind of damage that may have done to her when she was 15
Absolutely.
years old. And they said they want to make sure it's not, I don't know, it's not this just like they'll take anything kind of thing. They're very, very specific
Right.
as to who they will allow to be donors. They want to make sure that the donor is very healthy, not only to give a good kidney, but so that they themselves are healthy and have longevity in their life afterwards. And to maybe really quickly speak on, so after I received my transplant, I became a donor coordinator for eye, corneal and tissue bank in Seattle. And so then I was on the opposite end of the line, and I was the one that was looking through people's, it was cadaver donors and people who had passed, but I was looking through their medical records, and I was looking through their charts, and I was determining as to whether or not they were suitable to be a donor and they had that capacity, even if it was just for corneas, which is like the outer layer of our eye, which you can donate your corneas, and then 2 people get to see because of your donation. But we also did tissue. We did, skin graft, bone graft, heart for valve, so it was just interesting. And I think there's like this mixed conception, or I've had even friends tell me that they're like, oh, because I'm a donor on my driver's license, that means they're like, when I get to the hospital, they're not going to do anything to save me. And I always want to,
that's definitely a misconception.
Yeah, I got that misconception down. It's like, no. You will, they have half the time, if it's an emergency and you come in and you're unconscious, people, they have no idea who you are. They're just trying to save your life. And if, say, you get into a situation where you may be an organ donor, it takes days. It takes days for them to talk with the family, to, schedule the surgeries, to, it's this multi-level coordination that is going on behind the scenes in order to make donation possible, to make recovery possible. So yeah, I always tell people, I always want to cut that image. It's like, no, you can be a donor, and people aren't just going to start cutting you open and taking your organs. There's far more to it than just that.
Do you know anyone that has gone out of the country to get a kidney?
I do not personally know of anyone.
Do you know anyone that has, I don't even know if I should be saying this, but paid someone to get a kidney?
No, and it is federally illegal in the United States,
right?
to pay for any sort of organ donation. So if someone, and I had friends who said that this guy was like getting a hold of them on Instagram or something, saying like, hey, I'll give you my kidney, but I want money. So if anyone ever approaches you and says they want some sort of monetary exchange for their kidney or liver, whatever, report them, block them. That's not the right avenue to go about.
Yeah, hustling kidneys, right? That's federally That's a federal offense.
Federal offense to sell any sort of human
just
tissue.
To keep clear.
Yeah, so that's skin grafts, bone grafts,
right.
kidney grafts, corneal.
Which is why I wanted to mention it, because
yes.
I have heard of people that have gone that route. So,
and you know,
they had to go outside.
I'm not there to judge. I'm not here to judge by any means, you know, but
we're just being real and realistic of what does go on in the donation world. You know, it does happen, and you know, being
fascinating.
Being in this life, you kind of hear those stories. I talk to a lot of patients about things like this. I used to live in San Diego, so I'm right by the border. So, a lot of my friends were like, why don't you just go to TJ in Mexico? And, and so, you hear these things, but, organs are life, and people really want new life. So desperate times call for desperate measures, for sure.
It does. And if in that case, just keep reaching out, keep asking people, make that circle bigger. I don't know, like if you really feel like it, like speak to your little local radio station, speak to your local news stations. Like I've heard a lot of stories of, if you feel that comfortable to step out of your shell and to be seen in that way, the more people know. And even if, say, Mr. Joe is sitting on his couch watching the news and he sees your story and maybe doesn't feel the need to call to like be a donor, but maybe you just educated him in a way that he had never known that this is something that people are looking for, and it might have ripple effects later on in that person's life or their loved one's life. You never know. So continue to share the story. And I think the biggest thing that I could say, like, take away from our little podcast today is just like, you never know who your donor is going to be, and continue to ask and to continue to put your name out there, because someone does want to help you. And it's a remarkable sensation and feeling to know that someone is willing to give you life and to give you the freedom to live life.
Definitely. What I could take away is, not have those negative thoughts, not be afraid, and being confident about it, not being so judgmental towards yourself about it, so.
It's a beautiful takeaway. Yeah. Well, I think we've gotten close to our hour mark.
For sure.
I just want to thank you all again so much for joining us, for being here, for listening to Jovan and I, and hoping that maybe through our stories we're able to help you through yours as well.
For sure. Hopefully everybody is out there staying healthy, and thank you for listening.
Thank you all so much. We'll see you on the next one. I think we'll be going live. So the format that we've been talking about is we're going to be doing a podcast, and the following week we're going to hopefully be doing a live IG. That way we can have questions and input. You guys can interact with us a little bit more. So we can't wait to see you the following week, and we shall see you next time. Thank you so much, guys.
Peace and love.
Aloha.
Thank you so much for listening. Jovan's and Leila's shows will be published weekly basis at noon Pacific time. Make sure to follow us on social media. And if you have any feedback, make sure to send us private message on Instagram at Kidney Health Interview. Thanks.